real brief update about where we're headed as an organization, and then I'd really, really like to open this up for discussion. The purpose of these calls is really to allow our members to interact and help us understand what we need to be doing better. And so I did want to let everybody know we had a bit of a scare in that we had turned off some marketing activities in an effort to save money. And what we learned is those marketing activities were really, really important for keeping our members engaged and making sure that we were spreading the word about IVPA. And so we've since corrected that. And what I do want to say is that one of the benefits and services I hope everybody takes a look at is our teleradiology program. So Pam, since this is an informal conversation, I'm gonna impose upon you. Do you mind just giving the group a brief overview of what that teleradiology program is?
Absolutely. No, I don't mind. So it is a teleradiology service. We have five radiologists. The service operates Monday to Friday and most Saturdays. Turnaround time is really fast. We can't guarantee less than 24 hours, but the turnover is usually significantly less than 24 hours on a regular case, and a stat case is truly a stat. So our radiologists do a great job. Our fees are very competitive for up to 6 films at $75, and different additional films and stat cases or contrast cases are a little bit more, but the pricing is on the website. It's very easy to sign up and very convenient to submit films.
Yeah, and another thing that I'm really passionate about, and so in case you don't know much about me, I actually don't own a practice. I practiced previously. I actually work in industry. I work on the commercial side of things, and so what I get very passionate about is making sure that our service providers are like-minded and also small businesses and independently owned. And so I really love the fact that our radiologists are actually all independent veterinarians themselves. And so all of those radiologists want you to know that they are independent, that they are responsible for their own revenue, which means they really deeply care about your business and they really deeply care about serving your needs and making sure that you are taken care of. And it's not that the radiologists employed by the larger companies don't care. That's not it at all. But there's a bit more continuity in care in that they're going to stick with a case and make sure that you get what you need and make you happy. I'm actually going to pause here, and I hope you guys will start talking like you did before I got on the call. Are there any services that you think that IVPA needs to add that you're not getting at this point? If only you had XYZ.
I was actually
recruiting.
Recruiting.
I think I've made it.
That came in stereo.
I don't think we're ready. Go ahead.
I'd love to have an opportunity to meet with other independent practices in the state. I was looking on your website the other day of who are the other practices in Massachusetts, and thinking about trying to get at least those of us that are on this portion of the state together to actually meet each other so that we can work together at a local level more effectively for things like having a presence in the local vet school. So I'd love to see some connection with people who are local to us.
Yeah, and that really shouldn't be all that hard, right? And so I'm assuming you'd be okay if that was done virtually to start with, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do it in person, but virtual certainly is easier.
Yeah, and we had talked about doing chapters as well.
Yeah, like a Northeast chapter, Southeast, that kind of thing could at least get things started.
Yeah. And so then it just becomes, well, why add, the complexity of a chapter? But so that's something that we don't have to make that formal, and we can just start it off as easily as just helping to coordinate and connect everybody who's in an area. Pam, what do you think the next steps would be for that?
Probably a sign up sheet. And we could easily do that on a Google form. And then get it out onto social media and through a newsletter, through our newsletter and emails.
Okay, so Pam and I no longer sit on the board. That's Dr. Arnie Goldman, and we have a couple of board members here this evening. I am so remiss, I did not introduce those folks. I'm going to introduce them in a minute. But I continue to meet with Pam to try to hammer out some of these details to help the board focus on the future while I can help Pam with the logistics. Pam, are we doing anything for recruiting? I know Michael, I think that was it Michael or Mark who said recruiting was an issue.
It was Michael.
Hey, Michael. So what do you think, Pam? Have we done anything with that?
We have a listing page on our website where our members can post a free ad for that, and they can re-up it as many times as they need. And we could also start listing them in the practice in our newsletter.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, and that would be easy to do.
Okay. Awesome sauce. All right, cool beans. So I wrote myself some notes on that. So we've got recruiting. And I like to think that in the next couple of years, I'm being a little over enthusiastic here, but as these new schools open and we have new graduates coming, that will help ease that. And I'm hoping that'll help bring some relief for the staff shortages. We also at one point had a student program, which we were trying to scale, and we can certainly provide those materials to everybody. That I think also helps with recruiting. And then, of course, we have Dr. Leaf's suggestion of bringing practices in a state together to have more local power. Is there any other service or anything else that we could provide that I didn't list here or that wasn't brought up?
We do have a Google form that a practice can enter to list their practice as a place where veterinary students can do internships, visitations, rotations, externships. So that is on the student section of the IVPA webpage.
And if you get confused or lost, I know Pam's going to hate me for saying this, but if you email either me or Pam, we'll work with Darty. So so Pam is our executive director, in case I forgot to introduce you all to her. And then Darty is, of course, our assistant, and we love Darty. She is a master's level student who's helping us get lots and lots of stuff done. So between all of us, we can point you in the right direction for you to use those member resources. All right, and so now if we can, I would like to just bring up the fact that we have new board members. I'm really, really excited to have Dr. Arnie Goldman, like I touched on earlier. He brings a wealth of knowledge and connections through the American Veterinary Medical Association. And that's going to really help us expand our influence. I do want to touch on that. And so I'm going to describe that a little bit more and what that means. But in the meantime, I know we have Dr. Christy. Yeah, let's start with Jill. Sorry, Jill, I'm going to impose on you first. So Dr. Stetz, can you introduce yourself and give some information about your experience on the board?
Yes. Good evening. I am Dr. Stetz. I am a solo practitioner in Narberth, Pennsylvania, located just outside of Philadelphia. And I've been on the board several years now. And just like all of us, just have that passion for the independent practice and really excited for the new momentum with Arnie at the helm and just seeing how things are really taking off. So I'm excited. Hope everyone else is too.
So Jill, what's the latest thing that the board has accomplished in the past since the last meeting or since the last 6 months? What have you guys accomplished?
I mean, we're doing somewhat, I don't know if you want to say reorganization. We have worked on the bylaws, so just kind of getting more on a monthly meeting schedule and doing, basically a big thing right now is pushing for members. We have, I'm sure Pam has the stats. I don't know them off the top of my head, but we've had a pretty significant increase in membership, just like in the past month or so, by just, you know, some social networking. And so that's the big push right now, just getting those member numbers up.
And so, you know, Joe brings up a really good point, which is the most powerful way for us to get members to join is to tap a colleague on the shoulder and say, hey, please join and support the IVPA. And beyond the member benefits and the services that you receive, there's additional benefits. I do, before I forget, want to say that I would be remiss, and Pam would probably virtually slap me upside the head if I didn't tell you that if you take advantage of just teleradiology or the retirement benefits, if you take advantage of some of just one benefit, you more than recover the cost of your membership fee, probably on an annual basis. Pam, is that pretty fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yep.
if you, all those are on the website, but if you're having difficulties like me, I'm like, technology, I swear to God, is just not my friend these days. Then we just ask that you send us a note. Sometimes it takes us a little long to get back in touch with you. Just, I would ask that you remember Darty's on a part-time basis as well as Pam. And so Pam has really actually gone above and beyond to make sure that we're all taken care of. Another thing I'd like everybody to know, the reason why it's really, 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 really important that we have as as many members as possible is because the board really would like to get a seat in the House of Delegates. So I'm gonna just ask, because it gets kind of boring listening to the same person. Is there anybody out there that wants to take a stab at what that means, getting a seat in the House of Delegates, and why that would be important? Pam, you want to take a stab at it?
Yes, it's so that we can be there to represent independent practices at a governance level. At this time, there's not very much, if any, representation of independent veterinarians at the AVMA, at the high level of AVMA, and we are aiming to change that.
So when I found it, well, and when I worked with Don Woodman and a couple other veterinarians years and years ago to set IVPA up, I was working at Merck Animal Health as a technical services veterinarian. I may have even been in your practice talking to you about all kinds of stuff. And at the time, I was on the board for the American Association of Industry Veterinarians, and I acted as a delegate representing industry veterinarians to the AVMA. And what I heard is I heard a veterinarian who was in executive leadership at Banfield. I can't remember if she was like chief veterinary officer, but she was a high-ranking executive at Banfield. And she was trying to negotiate that the AVMA offer volume discounts to Banfield veterinarians. And so the idea was, hey, we've got all these veterinarians working for Banfield. You should provide us, AVMA, you should provide Banfield a volume discount. And what she said terrified me, which was if they got those group discounts, and if Banfield what they would do is Banfield would pay for every one of their veterinarians to become an AVMA member, and then they would give those veterinarians time off to participate in organized medicine, and they would actually expect and mandate that those veterinarians participated in AVMA business. And so the AVMA's mandate, their mission is to act on behalf of all veterinarians. You know, they are an umbrella organization that promotes veterinary colleagues across every function and specialty and all that good stuff. And so if we aren't there at the table as an independent to make sure that we're influencing the decisions of the AVMA, I do fear that we may lose influence, and the AVMA may really be focused on the needs of veterinarians who work at corporate practice. So I'll just pause there and open it up for conversation. Anybody seen anything similar at the state level?
I have to say, like, I have not been involved in my state association, but recently this week was talking to somebody, another veterinarian who had been on the board of the Massachusetts Veterinary Medical Association and actually quit because she said that the MVMA was only listening to corporate practices. So I do believe that's happening at the state level. I can't say like I know much about how that was happening or what exactly made her feel like they were only listening to corporate practices. I know that it was enough to make her want to step down from the board.
That's too bad. And anybody else have any similar experiences?
I will say, I do want to say one thing, and this is Christy Cornelius. I'm a member of the board, and I've got my eyes on the 1,000 members so that we can, have a seat and start talking and participating in this. But it's just the money, the amount of money that these larger companies have and the influence that they have as a result, I think is really very concerning. And there is nobody really stopping them. And I think Bonnie is right. I think we're continuing to lose out. And I feel that we're at a place where we really need to step in and start doing something about it.
May I ask
Go ahead.
what is the total membership of IVPA right at the moment?
I'll let Pam chime in.
Sorry, Pam, did you?
Yeah, the total membership is 581. And that includes veterinary students, practice managers, owners, associates, and industry affiliates. The number of practices represented is about 450.
And what's the total number needed to get a delegate seat?
We need 1,100, and I believe 90% of them need to be AVMA members.
And that's 1,100 practices or individual members?
No, individual veterinarians.
Right.
The majority of our members are practice owners. We have, and I just pulled the statistic, only about 12 second owner, in the same practice, and about 30 associates or non-owner veterinarians, not necessarily associates. And then the rest are practice owners.
Great. So double the organizational size, roughly.
Yes, a little bit more than double, but yes.
Yeah. So a little bit of work to do, but that seems like I remember seeing something about this in one of the recent newsletters, which was helpful to imagine. So I think it's a matter of just getting people motivated to go tap, exactly as you said, tap your friend on your shoulder, be like, hey, this is the deal. We were thinking about hosting an event either virtually or in person for practice owners in our area. And our offer was to like, hey, come to dinner, hang out. If you want to join IVPA, we'll buy your dues for the first year and see how it goes. And, maybe that would have got a couple of people, right?
That'd be awesome.
We'll see what we can do. But yeah, it's a good to understand what the goal is, right?
This is the perfect time as well with the fact that we have, as independent veterinary practices, we now have the attention of Senator Warren and Senator Blumenthal to help.
So maybe that's a good time. Sorry, I'm so bad with names. So Jamie, Dr. Leaf, and I forgot husband Dr. Leaf.
Yeah, I'm the plus one on this.
Yeah. And so since we're talking about it, could you share with us, could you kind of start from the beginning, your experience with meeting with Senator Warren and kind of what happened and what went down and what do you think is going to happen now?
Sure. How about I give the overview and you tell what things.
Sounds good.
So my name is Jamie Leaf and this is Dr. Amanda Leaf, right?
Sorry about that.
That's totally fine. Happens a lot.
And sometimes I put a little heart over the I in my name just to mess with people. So we were contacted by the senator's office a couple of weeks ago. And I actually want to follow up at their office and just find out how they got our contact information. I think it's because the senator lives a short distance away from us. And we are IVPA members and we're out in the community a lot. We've been sponsoring public radio in our area, so our name is out a lot in the media. And they asked us, they interviewed us, one of their aides interviewed us and asked us a bunch of questions about our perspective. The issues around corporate consolidation have been front of mind for us for many years. We're also members of well-managed practice group. And so in our well-managed practice group discussions, we've been talking a lot about specifically the impacts and also the issues around associate vet purchases of vet clinics and succession plans and how owners can plan, handle that. What's the environment of practice purchases and sales? So we had a lot to say at this call, and then they just called us back a while later and set this event up. And we went into it with the intention of talking a lot about why veterinary prices are very high and presenting maybe a little bit of a nuanced view of what's going in the veterinary pricing space. The fact that, for instance, housing is crazy high where we are and labor costs are huge. So we just pay a lot of money for staff. And that's actually one of the main drivers of veterinary price inflation in our view. The senator's office was they sent us a bunch of background information. Her work on the issues of private equity plundering of industries across, large swaths of the country's business environment, from manufacturing to dentistry to everything. This is an issue that's been a big issue for her. And so we kind of narrowed down our discussion points a little bit for her to really focus on what are the specific care and HR or quality of work experiences that vets have when corporations buy practices, and particularly private equity-backed corporations. And it was a very helpful discussion. We had another independent practice owner from the area and a couple vet techs, one of whom had been working at an ER practice, who worked for there for several years and finally quit because he just was really upset about, as many empathetic caregivers are, upset about the way that his practice was understaffing the clinic and compromising patient care because for profit reasons, right? It was a nice roundtable discussion. It was almost an hour, really. Mm-hmm. There were a bunch of print journalists there and a bunch of TV cameras. And she's fantastic. She's really interested in what's happening. She's very smart. She's very engaged. She has this piece of legislation which is attempting to change the federal regulatory playing field for private equity consolidation in particular industries. So, for instance, changing some of the tax structures that allow leveraged buyouts to gain some tax advantage in deals, providing some transparency so that if a corporation buys, let's say, 20 similar businesses in one area, that they're required to do some disclosures of that, not only to federal regulators who look at it from an antitrust perspective, but also on the consumer side, so that if Main Street Vet gets bought by VCA, it has to be printed somewhere in a client-facing way, as well as a bunch of other little parts of that legislation. I shouldn't say little, but meaningful parts of the legislation. So that was kind of the setup. How do you feel like it went?
Yeah, I think that their office did a really nice job of vetting those of us that were at the roundtable to really get a good overall view of what's been happening. And I really appreciated that because I've worked for big organizations that try and do things, but don't actually talk to the people that are affected by them, and then don't actually achieve their goals because they didn't actually talk to those people. So having her come to us and be like, can you really explain to me what the problems are? Because like I talked to some other vets, they were like, I don't want her to just say, hey, prices are going up and cap prices, because that's going to hurt independent vets way more than it's going to hurt corporate vets, because our margins are so much smaller because they get the discounts and things like that. So I really appreciated her coming and talking to us and really hearing from us what our issues are. And it was, I think, a particularly productive meeting. I think she really heard what we had to say. She was really kind and interested and asked a lot of good questions. And I think the possibility of having transparency, her continued, she said, you know, you're preaching to the choir about housing, having her continue to work on those kinds of issues at a national level could potentially be really helpful to all of us. The bill that Jamie was talking about that she has about corporate consolidation is called Stop Wall Street Looting. So if anyone wants to look it up, you can find it pretty easily because that's a unique title. Yeah, and it was fun to just show the clinic off to somebody of her caliber and have her look around and be like, this is a really cool place. So
To play with cute cats.
yeah, we got some really nice photo ops with a cute cat who happens to be from a shelter. So hopefully she'll get adopted quickly because of that.
Yeah. So one of the, you know, I went into it with the intention of, there's lots of problems and we can talk about the problems, but the question really is, what are some solutions? Like, so what, you know, one big issue to me is practices sell. And who's buying? Well, corporations are buying. They're able to roll up practices, as we know, because they're coming in with a large amount of money. So if you want to slow the corporate buyout train, create some access to capital or some financing structures or something else to assist associate veterinarians to buy out their practices. We have a 6-vet practice. Someone's going to need to come up with some cash for a succession plan for us. So we started our business with an SBA loan, and our suggestion was take a look at the, you know, get in touch with the SBA, take a look at ways that the SBA might be able to step up with a better understanding of the vet industry, because the reason that SBA worked for us was that they really understand the real estate purchase side, and they're willing to leverage real estate maybe more than local banks will. And if they were aware of the way that leverage worked, meaning debt to income ratio, that kind of thing, in this industry, it could be powerful because it would help slow this tide. She was interested to hear about vertical integration and business to business roll up side, right? So it's one thing about buying practices, it's another to understand that all the labs have a monopoly, a lot of suppliers. And so the pet crematory world, right? So that was something I think was helpful for her to hear and to understand, to be looking also in that sphere from an antitrust perspective. And she's interested in leveraging the DOJ on antitrust issues. That is actually happening in a lot of other parts of the federal regulatory side right now. Antitrust is becoming a much more popular, I wouldn't say popular topic, but the DOJ is starting to do a lot more, and the SEC is starting to do more. So, you know, obviously I bring up affordable housing, and she was like, yes, of course, that makes tons of sense. So yeah, those are really the takeaways that I came up with.
Any questions? Comments? So the good thing is hopefully, because I think like a marketer, there'll be lots of content and lots of articles and things, hopefully, that we can share to get the word out. One of the things that I think would be great for IVPA is to act as an educator of consumers. And so just to kind of extend the idea of what can we do on a grassroots basis. It would be great if, independent practices would join so that they could proclaim their independence and help consumers understand that, just as a kind of a segue from those meetings. And so what's the follow-up from Senator Warren? Is she going to reach back out to you, or what do you think is going to happen next?
I mentioned to her office that we'd like to follow up with some kind of just summary letter. It's probably going to take me another week or so to come
Right.
up with some formulation. It happens to be, we are in the process of practice management software transition, as well as like 20 other things. We've hired a lot of people this year. I'm just a little slow, but my intention is, what I talked about with Pam, is that we'd like to get a letter just summarizing what some positions might be, get it to IVPA, pass it around amongst the members, say, hey, are there things comments that you'd like to fold in, or feedback about the language or whatever, and then just send it into the Senator's office and say, delightful to meet you, and here's some things that we think you should be considering. There are going to be hearings on this bill at some point, we think probably next legislative season, depending on what happens in this coming election. It might be that, if the Senate flips, then those things might not get on the docket, but, we'll see. We're also members of, like the VHMA. The VHMA has got I think there's a bunch of people there who have some interest in this kind of issue. There's some people in the well-managed practice group community who care about this. And so my thought was also to separately do something similar in those venues, so that, there's the feedback is coming from legitimately different concerns.
Wonderful.
What happens, it really is, in a way, this particular thing is really dependent a lot on where the federal legislative calendar ends up. If, for instance, there are hearings, some people are gonna get invited to go speak in Washington, and that usually gets on, C-SPAN or maybe some, CNN or whatever. At which point, sometimes those things really leverage people's public opinion. On the other hand, might just die in committee somewhere.
Right. Well, we're so grateful to you for taking the time to do this. We know how hard it is to make time for these things. Please, keep us posted, keep us in the loop, and to your point, divide and conquer. And so if you need extra boots on the ground, we will get the word out.
3 things that I can think of that might also benefit is to send Senator Warren, now that we have a contact with Senator Warren's office, to send her Dr. Helfat's article on saving the soul of veterinary medicine, and Dr. Cornelius's piece on I Have a Dream. And then Well-Managed Practice Group, I know they're meeting in Portland, Maine, which is not necessarily Senator Warren's area, but it would be wonderful to invite her to that, because she would have 20 independent practitioners all in one room at one time.
Yeah. It's a way well-managed practice is set up. There's 3 separate groups, and our meetings in New Jersey. I don't actually know the folks who are in Portland, but I'm going to get to know them. So yeah, that could be great. And that's probably September, I would imagine.
It is. Yes. And Bonnie, Dr. Bragdon is actually going to be there. So we would also have the co-founder and immediate past president of IVPA there. So it'd be a pretty powerful group.
Is that one being facilitated by Cynthia, or
I think that is Denise's.
Denise? Yeah.
I think that's Denise's group, but I'm not entirely
I think
certain.
it's Denise too. Yeah, I think so too.
Well, I believe you guys have Sophie's
Yes, we
email
do.
address. And so, yeah, I expect it would be great for you to invite the senator to that. That could be awesome.
Yeah.
And Dr. Golden will be back in town, I think, in time for that as well.
I will email Denise and just, did you include Cynthia on your email of just
Yeah.
letting people? Okay, so Cynthia knows about this, so
Okay.
I'll copy Denise on that so that she's just aware of what's happening on our side, and then when she gets your invite, it might it'll help make sense.
Great. Synergy.
Talking about well-managed practice group, if we can continue this conversation, but if we feel like we're kind of at a point, just want to let everybody on the call know that we are working with the well-managed practice group. So if you would like to explore that type of relationship, the Leafs, Amanda and Jamie, can give you firsthand experience of what that type of group has done. So is anybody else on the call? Anybody else? Jill, are you part of VMG, Veterinary Management Group, or what I always forget, VSG, Veterinary Study Groups?
Sorry, had to unmute. No, I am not.
So is anybody else part of any of those types of study groups, or, I know VMG/VSG, which is a part of Covetrus, has those study groups, and then Well-Managed Practice Group, which is Denise Tumblin. Pam, are there any other groups out there? Are those the two main groups?
Those are the two main ones. There's the Veterinary Specialty Practice Alliance. It is
Right. That's what yeah.
Yeah.
So Amanda and Jamie, would you mind just kind of talking to what it means to belong to a well-managed practice group and what that looks like and what you guys work on?
You want to take that? You want me to?
I like talking. I love and I love well-managed practice. So
I'm gonna say one thing first. Sure. Like, I also recognize, like, when we started looking at this, it is a time commitment and a cost commitment that initially for me was a little bit hard to stomach, whether or not it would be beneficial. And then I will let Jamie take all the myriad of ways we have found it to be incredibly beneficial and well worth every penny and every minute we spend on it.
I can't really speak about VMG. I understand they operate in a very similar way, at least on some mechanics side. I know that if you join VMG or well-managed practice, what you're doing is agreeing to meet regularly with a set of practice owners. They're all independents. Share financial information. And VMG and well-managed practice both require you to take some of your bookkeeping information and distill it into a set of reports. The facilitators are CPAs or business analysts who've been in the veterinary industry only or predominantly for many years. Denise and Cynthia, like 25, 30 years. And they facilitate discussions amongst the practice owners on learning how to run your business better. And they back up the discussions with financial analysis, which helps you really understand what's going on in your business. So for us, even though I have a business background, I've been in a lot of industry, a lot of sales and management and businesses, it's super transformative for us. We like when I think about like just our increase in profitability, our increase in financial health, our increase in cultural health as an organization, well-managed practice. What does that mean? And in VMG, I think it's really the same thing, is getting to a higher standard of successful business operation. And it's not really a medical thing. There are a lot of supports in the world for becoming a better doctor, for increasing the quality of your medical care, for understanding treatments and stuff. There's a ton of that in the world. Here's the other side of how do you actually get to a point where you have the resources to successfully reinvest in your business, to pay your staff well, to take care of people, and to become a sustained organization. So it takes a lot of effort, but we, like, as I was saying, it was intimidating in the beginning. And we were just like looking forward to the next meeting. We come away with 150 item Excel spreadsheets of all the cool things we can do, like a book club for our managers and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, the more you do, the more you get out of it. So yeah, highly recommended.
And the way it's set up with the groups, at least in well-managed practice, is there's 3 different groups set up to be geographically diverse. So you're not sharing financial information with somebody who's down the street from you, but it also means that you're with the same small group every time. So there's a lot of accountability of, I know exactly what Jill's practice is struggling with and what her goals are for the next 6 months. I know exactly what, so-and-so's practice is working on. And I also know when there's people who are struggling with the same things as us, or who have had that same struggle, but have gotten past it. And I have people I can ask information of, because I really know these people within 1 or 2 meetings. Like, I really have a good idea of who all the different people are. And it gives me a huge number of resources to go through and ask people questions and to bounce ideas off of, and keep me accountable for what we said we were going to work on every 6 months.
Well, that's awesome. I love that concept, and I'm so glad we have that relationship with Well-Managed Practice Group. I will say, to spin it on a positive way, is that Well-Managed Practice Group, right? That is another independently owned business, and so Cynthia and Denise, I believe, are the principal owners, and that's in contrast to Veterinary Management Group, which is owned by Covetrus, and it does have corporate groups. So while you may be an independent practice that joins and you are a VMG group and you get all of those wonderful resources and get connected with other independent groups, they also have and offer those same services to consolidators and corporate groups. And I always worry. I have worked for large corporations. And it's not that they do anything unethical or underhanded or illegal, but, one group now has access to performance statistics and data that can be shared across groups. So not that your personal or your specific business information would be shared, but in aggregate, they can now kind of share your competitive advantage with corporate groups. And again, it's not that anybody has done that on purpose or nefarious or conspiracy theory. It's just sometimes sharing good ideas across a group could make your competitor, the corporate group, better, which is not what I would want to do.
And also for me, I don't know how much for Jamie, like the fact that it's backed by Covetrus, like you're giving your information to one of the major corporations. And I didn't really want to do that or be tied to buying stuff through them only, because it hasn't been the best. Like we do buy a lot of stuff through Covetrus, but they're not our major supplier.
Oh, they're like, 1 out of $40 goes to Covetrus.
Yeah. So it wasn't, I didn't want to tie myself to one of the manufacturers.
We're also TVC members, so we do most of our.
TVC, yeah.
So
Wonderful.
also something I recommend to everybody.
Yeah, so TVC, Veterinary Cooperative, and that is a buying group, and so you can find out more there. We don't have any specific ties there, but we do with the Well-Managed Practice Group. So Pam, I know we have a comment from Rochelle that she's interested, and we would love to introduce you to the Well-Managed Practice Group, Rochelle, just because we have that relationship. And so if you, Pam, if we can make a note of that.
Yes, I'll do an introduction.
Nice. Perfect. All right. Well, Jamie and Amanda, you have been a wealth of information this evening. I really, really appreciate everything that you've talked about. Actually, if there are no other questions for Jamie and Amanda, I was actually going to pick on Dr. Cornelius next. So I bet you she was thinking I forgot to introduce her. She's next on my list to give a brief overview. So Dr. Cornelius was kind enough to be a guest on IVPA's new podcast. The purpose of the podcast is to help promote the value of independent practice. Our tagline is the Veterinary Insider, the podcast for veterinarians and others who want to keep veterinary medicine independent and veterinarian owned. And so Dr. Cornelius, how was it? It was a little rough. I don't know. I was not on my game today. I didn't have my mojo, but yeah.
I give you big props because that you did back to back, and that, like I said, it's a lot of energy, and so I think you did really well. I think it was a really good experience for me because it gave me the opportunity to kind of explain some of the things that I can see we can do as independent practitioners to work together to try to help improve our cause. And I think it helps to highlight some of the people that can actually make some connections and network really well, and be able to introduce them. And so we can actually help, build a big collaboration that we can work together to try to, figure out some solution to some of the problems that we're facing and some of the challenges that we have as independent practitioners when it comes to, competing with, larger corporations.
And again, I really like this idea that, all of us on this call, we have a new practice owner. Hopefully you don't mind, Rochelle, my kind of calling that out. You put that in the message. And then we have Jamie and Amanda who own a 6-doctor practice. And then we have Dr. Cornelius, who recently sold her hospice practice. And so the podcast will help us share our collective experiences and maybe inspire other veterinarians to own. It also helps practice owners get introduced to services from other independents, like we've been talking about. So Dr. Cornelius is starting a journey with consulting herself. And so it's just a nice way to control our narrative and tell our story. And Amanda and Jamie, I would like to invite you to be on our podcast at some point. We need you on there. So we'll get in touch about that in a moment. So check us out, our podcast. I'm going to lean again on Pam here in a second, but I promise I don't like watching myself. And so my video with all of my quirky comments is like all over LinkedIn, which is really, really hard for me to watch. But if you would subscribe, like, repost, do all of those things wherever you see us, that would be truly helpful. So Pam, I know it's on LinkedIn. Where else is the whole podcast thing going on?
It is on Spotify. It's also on YouTube, and it is on our social channels. Episode number 2 drops this week. And once this episode drops, we're going to go ahead and send an email out to everyone with the link to Spotify and all the other places where it is, in case Spotify is not your preferred place to be.
So and we did, because I am arrogantly naive or naively arrogant. I don't know which. I did ask if Elizabeth Warren would be available. Of course, I did not get an answer. So probably won't be able to get her on, but we would love to have you, Jamie and Amanda on there. So we'll reach back out about that. But sharing that will help get the word out. The last thing I was going to mention, because we're just about on time, so thank you everybody for your participation. Does anybody want to go to Vegas for free? I'm not teasing.
What's the catch?
What's the catch?
In life.
It's not an animal meeting.
I could be interested.
All right. So now you do have to qualify. So there's a new way that vendors and suppliers are starting to interact with practices. And the way that that's occurring is more along the lines of speed dating. And I work for a company, and we set up a very expensive booth at all these conferences. We might spend literally $5,000 to $7,000 to set up a booth, and you may never even come find us. So that's a very expensive way to try to have a conversation with the right customers. What Vet Together is doing is they are hosting highly qualified practices. And what that means to them is 3+ doctors. They will pay for you to fly to Vegas, and you have a choice of who you want to meet with. which of the 30 vendors who are sponsoring the event you want to have a one-on-one meeting with. And so that meeting, you might say, look, I really want to talk to, I'm going to be selfish here and say, I really want to talk to Dr. Bragdon from Centerpoint Biotech. I'm going to schedule a meeting with her at 3:00 on whatever day. We're going to talk for 15 minutes. I'm going to say, yeah, I really want to learn more about your equipment. Let's set up additional meetings. Or, you know what? I think she's full of crap and I don't want to talk to her anymore. So it helps you really shop, if you will, or consider and evaluate vendors and suppliers in a very consolidated, time efficient manner. You get to be in Vegas, and there's also some educational opportunities. So the website is together.vet, but it would really help out IVPA if you would email us. So if you let me know, and that way I'm going to put my email here in the chat. So if you can email us, and I mean, if you go on the site and you qualify and you register, that's great. Fine, go ahead and do that. Just let me know that you did that so that I can make sure to let them know, so they may start spending some money with us.
Cool. Is there a list of the vendors there?
I did not see that. So I think they may be holding that secret. I don't know. But maybe if you register, you might get that list.
I think I saw it on social.
Did you see it?
I didn't read the whole thing, but I saw a graphic that looked like it had a whole bunch of logos on it. And with that, we circled back around to the original topic.
Yeah.
And we can repeat this topic in November, or expand this topic in November, because I'm sure some things will happen by then.
So anyway, so we are over time. I didn't realize this. So thank you everybody very, very much. Please send me an email if you're interested in that. Jessica, you're not going to go to that event. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, we just can't. We're a really small business, and it would just, the payoff is too risky, to spend that kind of money for us. So
Well, and I mean, Jessica, that introduces, I mean, again, my arrogant naivete, I would love for us to have an event like this.
yeah,
We could have our own, and I am, small business is, and that's what I hope all of our members at IVPA understand, right? So if we go away, and I say we, sorry, I'm going to identify with practice owners. If independent practices go away, what that means is that there are a lot of small businesses, small service providers, small product suppliers, like Jessica's company, that will go out of business, and they will no longer exist because they really do focus on serving the needs of independents. So just know that the independent veterinary practice is really at the center of a really broad ecosystem, kind of like an estuary down in Louisiana. This idea that if we don't take care of the ecosystem and keep it healthy, then I think the whole system's really going to get off kilter. And so that's why I support independent practices.
Right.
All right. Well, so I'm going to end the call. I'll stay on here for just a minute in case anybody wants to talk personally, or but email is a really good way to reach me. It gets into my to-do list. I may not immediately get back to you, but I definitely will get back to you at some point.